Georgia lawyers Bob and Irreverent D talk law. Listen up for stories about how things really happen in our legal system. Who are these guys? Dwayne Singleton, Irreverent D, is a criminal defense attorney in the state of Georgia. Benjamin O. Benson, aka Bob, is a personal injury attorney in Atlanta. Today, the boys are dockside in Miami when Irreverent D makes a confession.
Have you been thrown in jail?
Which time?
Bob draws the line on what you share with a lawyer.
Yeah, let me tell you about my sex life. It's really, I'm like, no. Like, slow down. I don't need you to go that far.
And Dwayne shows you how not to set up a law firm.
Hired a secretary, got some letterhead, and we were our own law firm.
How did you get clients?
We didn't.
Now, sit back and take a listen as Bob and Irreverent D talk law.
Back in our wonderful place in Homestead, Florida, in the marina here with palm trees and the beautiful skyline and the gorgeous things. And we were talking about personal injury cases. We were talking about this $1.5 million verdict in Gwinnett County,
Right?
back in our home state of Georgia.
And how we figure out what them cases be worth.
That's right. And how do you
And
make
you're
a
talking about
determination
the
of
magic
the magic triangle. Liability,
We're not
damages,
in the
and
Illuminati.
coverage. We're not in the Illuminati. That's right. But we are like listening to some great is that hip hop? Some kind of music? I don't know.
Yes, there's Afro-Cuban hip-hop.
Afro-Cuban hip hop is what I'm hearing from the producer.
Little Bad Bunny.
Something like that. Bad Bunny. So at any rate, so when I'm talking to my client, I'm talking to them about, okay, well look, one, from the damages standpoint, we're not going to make it into something it's not. If you weren't hurt that bad, we don't want to, we're not going to make it into something that it's not. But if you are, we need to make sure that your medical bills accurately reflect how hurt you are. We need to make sure that it's consistent with.
So,
right?
what do you do though with, we'll call him Frank,
Okay, Frank.
Vietnam veteran,
Yep.
likes to eat bark off of trees,
That's right.
toughest joker ever.
Yep.
Gets in a terrible, horrific car crash. Car is mangled.
Yes.
He goes to the doctor with all his rods coming out of his legs
Right.
and screws.
He already has all kinds of hardware from before.
Doctor says, "How you doing?" He's like, "I'm doing great, doc.
Take them both out. I don't need them.
Glad
right?
to be alive. Just take it out.
Right.
I'm fine."
I'm fine.
What do you do with those guys?
Well, I take them through the triangle.
Right.
And I talk to them and say, listen,
Because you don't want them to lie
No.
and say they're hurt more than they are.
No, I don't.
But you don't want them to lie on the other side and say they're fine when
Yeah,
they're clearly not.
That's true. But generally, in that limited set of circumstances,
Right.
because it is very uncommon for that. What I'll do is I'll say, now listen, Frank, if I were to make you leave this office and have your wife Jenny come in and ask her how this has affected you, are you pretty sure that she would say the same thing that you're saying? Because I'm kind of thinking maybe not.
Right.
And Frank will then, come
Be honest about where
be
he's
honest and say, let me tell you about my sex life. It's really, I'm like, no.
Right.
Like, slow down. I don't need you to go that far.
Now let's look at the other side of it. We got a client. He's got a ding on the side of the door this big,
Yep.
and he's got a paper cut.
Yep.
And he's like, I really need
My entire life has changed.
$75,000 because I can no longer use this hand at all.
Yeah. So, actually,
Because I've seen both of those scenarios.
those are some of the more simple ways of some similar simple situations. Because generally speaking, I can say, and rightfully so, say, well, has the doctor said that you have permanent condition, that you have a permanent limitation, that you have like some kind of permanent restrictions because of this?
No, I keep telling the doctor they won't even give me any more medicine for it.
I know. And I keep
tell them it hurts really bad.
And I said this Percocet doesn't do anything for this.
Doesn't even touch the pain.
Doesn't even touch it. Doesn't even touch it. So then I say, well, look, I love you and I believe you, but understand that you're not qualified to go in front of a jury and talk about what your medical conditions are and what they mean. Only a doctor can. And so if your doctor's not saying it, like we're kind of, our hands are kind of tied. We can't say that you that you have these permanent limitations because of the injuries, because the doctor's really not saying it.
Right.
Right. But the other part of that is, I've had this conversation recently with a potential client where she was saying, look, this accident completely has changed my life, has turned my life upside down. And I took a look at it and said, well, okay, so it's a fairly minor collision that happened in a parking lot. So generally speaking, parking lot collisions, don't involve a high amount of speed, and generally you don't think of them as being high impact. And she's saying, well, look, I have permanent brain damage, I have permanent this, and I have permanent that, and I was very respectful with her and said, look, I love you, and and I respect what you're having to say, but understand that there are certain things that I can argue to a jury that I think there's a decent likelihood that a jury will accept, and there's some things I just can't sell, and I can tell you right now that I can't sell to a jury that your life was completely upended and destroyed because of this accident, because the dog just won't hunt. And she respected me for saying that, and I assume that she found a different lawyer, but it's important in those circumstances for me to be upfront with the potential client and saying, look, this is what I see, this is what I'm kind of evaluating. These are the three sides of things: liability, damages, right. And coverage. And but before you jump in with me, you need to know. I need to be honest with you about what I think.
Well, that's your reputation with your defense bar too, mm-hmm. and with the insurance adjusters. They need to know, just like when I say that we're going to go to trial and we're going to do this, they need to know that you're going to go to trial and you're going to be able to back up what you're saying. And you're not just that guy that's just full of
right.
smoke, right?
Smoke and mirrors.
That you're really going to be able to back it up, because that gives more value to all your cases.
Right. My clients.
Right. Clients.
So the contract, so to speak, that I have with my clients, or the agreement I have with my clients is, look, at some point I'm going to tell you what the value of your case is, based on liability, damages, coverage, all those three things together. I'm going to tell you what the value of the case is, and if they make, and it's usually going to be a range, $5 to $10, or whatever, right? And if they make an offer in that range, I'm going to pressure you to settle the case, because that's what's fair. But if they don't make an offer, I'm going to pressure you to let me sue the person who's responsible to you for your damages, because that's what I do. I sue people.
Right.
People ask me, they say, well, what do you do? I sue people.
Right.
We sue a lot of people because there are some times that insurance companies just don't make a fair offer. And they, frankly, Dwayne, they don't have to make a fair offer.
Right.
Or an offer that I think is fair. What they have to do is they have to defend their person if I sue that person, and they have to pay a verdict if I get a verdict against that person. Other than that, the insurance company for the other person, they don't have a duty to my client.
Right.
All they have to do is do those two things: defend the person I sue, and pay the verdict if I got a verdict against them. So, at any rate, the most important thing when I'm talking to a new client is, first of all, just having a completely stripped down, no BS talk about what the condition of the real world is. This is what we have to prove. Nobody's going to hand it to us. We got to fight for it. We got to prove every bit of it. And if they don't agree with us, we got to prove it in front of 12 strangers who don't know you.
Right.
and I aim to do that. I'm good at doing that, and this is what I think it is. I've got a pretty good sense of it, and if you agree, I think we'd be good partners to work together on it. And if we recover as partners, and if we don't, we both lose as partners.
Right.
Let's work together, and knock on wood. I've been really happy representing the clients that I represent because they all get it.
Right.
And we all, kind of work together towards that common goal of making sure that they're fairly compensated for their injuries.
Just making sure they understand that, if we go in there and we walk out with a 0 verdict, a goose egg, you're not getting anything.
I'm not.
Right. And neither are they.
That's right.
Right.
In fact, I'm negative.
Right.
Because I probably spent thousands of dollars preparing for it.
And that's the same conversation I have on criminal cases too. I'm like, we walk in there and you get convicted, you can go to jail for 20 years. If you're okay with that risk, I'm okay. Because you're taking the risk. We're going in there and fighting together. But at the end,
I'm not going to jail.
Right. I'm not.
Right.
I'm going to walk out and go home. I might be upset, but I'm not going to.
Right. I'm not going to be happy.
In most cases, the judge isn't going to throw me in there with you.
Have you been thrown in jail?
I've been held in contempt.
And have you been put in jail though?
Just held there and had to bring some money to the courthouse.
What happened?
Which time?
Oh, more than once you've been held in jail?
Oh yeah, criminal defense attorneys get very little slack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The judges don't like you.
Well, we're always running from place to place, and we're always late because we're coming from one place to another. And so, had one case where I had a kid that was mentoring. It was like the shadow day, and so we had court out in Clayton County in the morning, and he was with me, and then I had to drop him off with his mom, and then I had to go to Lamar County for court. And the judge literally called the other judge, asked what time I left.
No way.
Swear. And then had to drive, and then he's like, it only takes an hour and 10 minutes to get there, and you've been gone 2 hours and 30 minutes.
What
and
happened?
We've been waiting for you. So held me in contempt. He made me pay a fine that day, and then he made me write letters of apology to everybody in the courtroom by hand. I'm like,
oh no.
My letters of apology was like, while I was mentoring children.
Right. I was doing my civic duty and bringing up kids who need direction and guidance. Yes.
Yeah.
I was an hour later than you expected.
The judge still likes to joke about it.
Really?
I don't find it funny, but he thinks it's
funny.
Hilarious.
It's hysterical.
It's time for questions from an 8-year-old.
Questions from an 8-year-old. Dwayne, we have no idea what he's going to ask.
Nope, he went down into the bowels of the ship here
and wrote down some more questions
for hours on this question.
All right.
Let's hear what we got.
Break it down for us.
How do people start a law firm?
Oh, that's a good question. How do people start a law firm? Well, first, Dwayne, you want to handle that?
So, me and my friend in college, in law school, we both decided that we didn't want to go work for the man, and we were going to go out and just open our own office. So when we graduated, we just hung out a shingle, got us a desk, hired a secretary, got some letterhead, and we were our own law firm.
How did you get clients?
We didn't. No. So we had one key client. We were that was in the building where we were at, and we did closings on fractional share aircraft.
Oh, wow.
So that was our base business.
Yes.
And our other business was a real technical business called walk through the door law.
Yeah, okay.
So if it walked through the door, we represented it.
Yeah.
But our key strategy was to go to CLEs and crash them, continuing legal education.
Right.
And just go crash them. We didn't pay for them.
Oh, okay.
We would
you
just
go, show up.
And we would just hand out business cards.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And then we'd leave.
Did you get any clients from that?
Yes. And so my goal every day, I'd put 20 business cards in my front pocket.
Yeah.
And I didn't come home until I handed them all out.
All out.
So I'd be at the Waffle House eating dinner going, hey, I'm a lawyer.
I'm a lawyer. Call me.
Had my yellow pad, so I looked official.
Right.
Yeah.
So what kind of cases, what kind of clients did you get from that?
I mean, we had criminal, divorce. We ended up with one big client where we ended up doing collection work.
Okay.
Somebody that we just ran into. And my old partner ended up taking over his firm.
Really?
That's like all he does.
And
now.
still.
Yeah, it's just big high-end collection work. Just we ran into it like a governor's function where they were having some kind of open house at the governor's mansion.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
That's a great way to open a law firm.
well, we thought that we would get a lot of business because my old partner's family was well connected in the legal world, but they don't send their clients to brand new lawyers.
Right. They tend not to.
We didn't know that at the time, so we got no business from his family. But
I think, like, that's the misconception that a lot of young lawyers have is like, oh, I'm just going to open up my law firm and people are just going to show up.
where's the business come from?
Where's the business come from?
And everybody says don't represent your friends and family. Who else are you going to represent?
That's all we had at the time.
It's not don't represent them, just don't represent them for free.
But that's,
like-
right. That's right. That's right. Don't
As long as you're
represent
getting
them for free.
paid.
So when I started my law firm, that was in 2014. At the time, I didn't have any new clients.
Right.
And I frankly didn't know where any of my clients were going to come from. What I know is that in the personal injury world, and at the time I was representing people in workers' compensation claims, many attorneys who practice in workers' compensation or in personal injury will refer to each other,
Right.
which is, you wouldn't think off the top of your head that would be normal, but it is. There are plenty of personal injury lawyers who they have a different mindset for who they're going to represent, and if there's somebody who has a more difficult case,
right,
and they can afford to be like more choosy about the clients, then they'll refer the client out to me, and
right,
I'll work with their more difficult case.
Because they can work on one case and.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you just start one.
Yep.
You make a business plan.
And you make sure that people know. You got to know. Let people know that you exist.
I had a desk and a computer and a rented office space before I had my bar results back.
Before you had your bar results.
And I
Wow.
was
That
sweating,
was ambitious.
sweating bullets.
My first job, I got a job before I got my bar results in, but I think they had a pretty good indication that I was going to pass.
And my partner was out hiking in the Joshua Tree,
Back down in Southern California,
and we couldn't even get in touch with him to tell him he passed the bar.
that he passed the bar. He's like, man, of course I did.
He's like, I got this.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just-
well, thank you for questions from an 8-year-old.
This has been Questions from an 8-Year-Old.
It's
The
kind
sky
of
is
cloudy
just
now.
spitting a little bit at us.
little rain.
But man, is it beautiful out. Has such a gorgeous, nice breeze going through here. Got great Afro-Cuban music coming through here, and dirt bikes and all kinds of fun sounds. Earlier on there was somebody's mast had like a line that was banging up against it. We're having great fun with different noises. But anyway, so we're back talking about the personal injury case.
So you asked me a hard question earlier. You said you wanted me to take you through a criminal case from beginning to end.
Yeah.
So kind of tell me, like, on a personal injury side,
Yep.
from start to finish, what I need to do, how we need to handle it, how it goes, what needs to happen.
Yeah.
So I
So-
get hit
You get hit.
by the 18-wheeler drunk Budweiser truck driver
Drinking his own content.
drinking his own content that
His own
the
product.
company knows about and has not fired him yet.
Okay, so huge liability. Probably a lot of coverage.
Yeah.
And maybe you have a lot of damages. We don't really know.
Right.
So the first thing you need to do is you need to call me so I can talk to you about, what your options are.
I'm in the ICU.
You're in the ICU. Probably not a good time to be talking.
Okay.
All right. I would be glad to talk to a family member
All right.
on your behalf so that we can kind of get information. And if you want to hire us, basically, we work on a contingency basis, which means that if we don't get compensation for you for your damages, then we don't recover anything.
So I
We
don't have to
charge
write you a check.
You don't have to write me a check. No. And all of the things that need to be done, we're going to pay for those things right off the bat. So, for example, if you're hit by a tractor trailer, we're going to have an expert go down there pretty well right away to analyze where the scene of the accident happened, and to.
So you say expert, like an accident reconstructionist?
Yep.
Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll have to hire an accident reconstructionist to go down there and like physically plot it out and show us exactly how it happened, and to get as much of the data as possible. So essentially, what we're doing is we want to go from where you are to paid money for your damages to all of the people who need to be paid from those damages got paid, and including you. Okay. And the steps that we have to go through is, one, we have to open your file by letting all of the people who need to know that we're representing you know that we're representing you. Then we're going to start building your file. We're going to build those 3 parts of your case: liability, we're going to build your damages, we're going to discover how much coverage there is. In that, the reconstruction expert is going to help us with the liability side and showing, okay, well, this is how it happened and why it happened, and how in particular, how the other person is at fault.
Right.
We also will get all of the dash cam video from the police officers who go there and do the investigation.
Because the driver's not going to just come to you and be like, hey, I was drunk, and hey, I've been in trouble with the company before. Right. Like, you got to dig that stuff up, right?
They're not going to confess it to you.
Right.
That's right. So we have to build that case. As your lawyer, we have to get all of the data, get all of the facts that will build that case on liability. Otherwise, without showing this kind of egregious conduct, we're basically just kind of left with, well, they rear-ended them.
Right.
And that's liability enough, but you really don't get a sense of how bad their conduct was until you really are pulling through all those facts.
Right.
And that can make a difference in your verdict if you've got conduct that's really bad. The second thing that we have to do is start, finding out how much coverage there is. So we're going to send a letter to the insurance company and say, well, how much coverage is there for the damages? We'll send a letter to your insurance company to find out how much coverage you have for underinsured motorists or uninsured motorist coverage. And then the next thing is that we'll start building the damages part of your case. Some of that will happen automatically. You go to the emergency room, there are damages automatically, right? But then we have to kind of figure out, well, if the emergency room doctors are saying that you need care after this, like, how do we arrange for you to have that medical care? You might have ways to pay for it through health insurance. You may have to borrow medical treatment in order to get the treatment that you need. Whatever the case, we need to make sure that we're getting all of the medical treatment that you need so that you get better. And then after we've done all of that stuff, after we've built your case on liability, we've understood how much coverage there is, and we've built your case on damages, we've kind of demonstrated all the damages that you have, then we send a demand to the insurance company and say, hey, in return for X number of dollars, we'll release you from responsibility.
Gotcha.
And if we can come to an agreement on what the value of those damages are, then it's done. They issue cash, we issue a release that says, okay, we're releasing you from responsibility. All right. If you can come to an agreement on the value of the damages, value of the case. Most of the time when we have to file a lawsuit, it's not usually because we have a disagreement on liability. It's because we disagree on what the value of the damages are.
Right.
And so if we can't come to an agreement on the value of the damages, then we have to sue the driver, the person who did it. And that triggers the duty of the insurance company to defend that driver, and then we proceed towards trial. Okay? So if I have 100 clients, I will generally be able to resolve maybe 65 of their cases without having to file a lawsuit, because we come to some agreement about what the value of their damages are. Right. Of the other 35, we have to file a lawsuit, and we'll still pretty well work out something with the insurance company along the way towards trial in most of those cases. And very few we have to actually try in front of a jury, because we just can't come to an agreement about what the value of the damages are, or whether, in some very limited circumstances, whether the other person is at fault or not.
Right.
So that's kind of it from the start to the finish, like from you coming to me as a potential client, us deciding we're going to work together, us working towards that, and then once we've gotten the money, if assuming that we've reached some kind of an agreement, then we have to figure out how to pay all the people that need to get paid. Right? So it's not a simple matter of, okay, we've got umpteen $1 million or whatever it is, right? Umpteen $1,000. We give you 2/3 and we give ourselves 1/3. We have to figure out, well, does the hospital need to get paid back?
Right.
Or does your health insurance company need to get paid back? Or if we borrowed medical treatment, do the people who loaned you medical treatment need to be paid back, and how much do we pay them back? And so we kind of sort that out as we are negotiating. We're kind of sorting that out with you on the phone, talking about, well, who do we have to pay and how much do we have to pay them, and can we make this work out for everybody so that everybody's just kind of well taken care of.
Now, if your case is going to trial, I know with me, I always do jury trials.
Yep.
Do you prefer a jury trial or a bench trial? And I mean, I know that, you also have to go through mediation in some cases.
Sometimes.
And then some judges are really sticklers about their consolidated pretrial order and their scheduling orders.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about how that works.
So the only time that I prefer to have a judge decide the case is if my client has kind of low medical bills.
Okay.
If we're talking about my client has $5,000 or $6,000 in medical bills, I'd much rather a judge decide what the value of the case is, because my experience has been that if I make a jury, 12 people decide about $5,000 in medical bills, generally most of them are really kind of ticked off.
Right.
That they have to spend 2 or 3 days, or maybe even if it's just a whole day.
You might get a goose egg.
I might get a goose egg. In fact, the last time I had a jury trial with that small in damages, that's what happened. Like, the jury gave my client exactly what their medical bills were and $0 for pain and suffering. And, I didn't get to talk to the jury afterwards, but the sense I got was, why are you wasting our time, like, on this?
Here's your medical bills, go
Here's
home.
your medical bills, go home, right? Now, I was in a pretty conservative county, and so I wasn't completely surprised, but that can happen. And so in those circumstances where my clients kind of got low damages, I find that judges tend to be a little bit more sympathetic and used to seeing these kinds of kind of smaller value cases. In all other circumstances, especially where my client has permanent injuries, I want a jury to hear my client talk about how much the injuries have impacted their life. I want a jury to hear about from my client's coworkers, from not necessarily the spouse as much, because the spouse is always going to,
Right.
I want to say ham it up, but obviously the spouse is going to say how, and juries kind of know that, right? Like, of course the wife's going to say
He'll
it's
never
bad.
play the guitar again.
Right, exactly, right? But I mean, coworkers, people who are generally thought to be more objective,
Right.
like, I want the jury to hear about, well, yeah, after that, they never came back to work, or they were always limping after that,
Right.
whatever the case. I want all of that good testimony in about how their life has been affected, because that really will get, members of a jury to really think about, well, what would happen if that happened to me?
Right.
Right? And we're not allowed to say that.
Right.
We're not. They say don't use the golden rule.
Right.
Like, what would happen? How would you feel if it was
Do
you?
unto others.
Yeah, right. Do unto others. But you still get to get that same thought process across. Just kind of insinuating, like, this could happen to you.
Why can't we use the golden rule? Why? Why not?
I think at some point, some court along the way decided, well, that's just not fair to defendants. I think you ought to be able to say that. Frankly, it kind of angers me that if you injure me and we can't come to some agreement about your damages, that I have to sue you. And when I sue you, you get to ask everything about my personal life. You get to ask, do I have any mental diseases? Have I ever been treated for depression or anxiety? Have I ever had a hysterectomy? Other injuries, or have I ever, you get to, my life is completely open to you for inspection. Granted, it's not open to the general public for inspection, but I have to divulge to you all of the things, all the personal things about my life because you hurt me.
Right.
Right? And that's not fair. It is what it is, and there really is no other way that I can see to set up a system that is more fair. But man, it's really demeaning.
And clients get so upset.
They have a right
Why
to be upset.
Why do I have to answer these questions?
Why does my marijuana charge in 1988 have anything to do with this case? Well, yeah, it doesn't, but the law about
because they think
what's
they can give you less money.
That's right.
If you have it out
what's discoverable in discovery, doesn't have anything to do with whether it's relevant. Yeah.
So you just kind of generally look at the value of the case to decide juries or judges. Now, What about this? What about state court or superior court? Do you have a preference of where you like to be?
Yeah, I like to be in state court if there is a state court. We've got 100 and how many counties in Georgia?
170, 180 counties.
There's a bunch.
Yeah.
And maybe there's 25 counties out of our entire state that have state courts.
Because they all had to be no more than 1 day's mule ride from each other.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
That's why there's so many counties?
That's why we have so many counties. So all your circuits, that's why some circuits are bigger and some circuits are smaller.
Really?
It was just demographic.
Because it has to do with geographic.
Geographic.
Okay. How many mule rides it was away.
The English language.
There's still, particularly in Lamar County, right? There's still a circuit judge that roams around from Bibb County to
the Griffin
Lamar.
Judicial Circuit is a
circuit?
Is a circuit, yeah.
So, at any rate, we're always trying to make sure that we have the most favorable venue for our client if we possibly can. But there are a lot of places where there isn't a state court, and where the juries, people are super conservative and they think, well, he's got $20,000 in medical bills. Let's do him a big favor. We'll give him $2,000 in pain and suffering damages. That's a lot of money, right? And so our clients can be surprised sometimes by the way that jurors, but just normal folk,
or they think everybody's got the McDonald's case. They're just trying to take somebody for a ride.
Right. Yeah. Don't get me started about the McDonald's case.
Charge them extra.
Right. That's right. Trying to make something out of nothing.
Rich, right.
Yeah. Thankfully, most of my clients, nearly all of them, have this in common. Where they say, I don't want to be compensated more than is fair.
Right.
Every once in a while you get a client who's like, I want justice, or whatever. But mostly, the clients that we have think like I do.
Well, I think generally with most clients, if you had a door they could walk through, you can walk through this door over here and be healed completely.
Right. Or not have gotten injured.
Never gotten injured, be completely healed. Or this door over here with $50,000, they're going to go through this door to be healed.
Knowing all the things.
Every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not worth the hassle. Even, people are like, oh, I want a big case. I'm like, you don't want a big case where you had multiple surgeries and were in the hospital for years and,
Right. That's no bueno all the way around. Right? Yeah. Well, thanks for asking me all those questions. Really,
thank you for answering them.
That was a good time, and thanks for joining us. Make sure that you subscribe. We're gonna
follow.
We're gonna call it a night. The night lights have come on, so I think it's.
Mama says I got to get home when the street lights turn on.
That's right. Good job, man.
Be good.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next time when Bob and Irreverent D talk law.